Evelyn, and I'm the Marketing Communications Specialist here at JADAC. I'd like to welcome you all to JADAC's informational RFID webinar on how to utilize RFID technology to improve patient safety and protect revenue. Today's presenters are Chuck Barber, who is our VP of Business Development, and Steve Schneider, who is our RFID Product Manager. I would like to mention that if any of you have questions during the presentation, we invite you to type in your questions into the Q&A window during the webinar. The questions should be geared towards all panelists, and at the end of the webinar, we will read off your questions aloud to Steve and Chuck. We will do our best to answer all your questions. However, if time does not allow it, we will email you back the answers. So now, without further ado, I'd like to hand the mic over to Chuck Barber. Chuck, take it away.
Justina, you can see on this slide, this is who I am. This is my bio. So I'm a Director of Product Management for JADAC here. You know, I'm not going to read through the whole bio. You can see I've been around for a long time. It makes me feel old when I read it myself. Most of my experience is in imaging related. We'll be introducing Steve in a little while, who's our RFID expert, and he'll be doing a lot more of the bulk of this presentation. I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to JADAC and who we are. So JADAC is, we're located in Syracuse, New York. We specialize in what I would call automatic data collection technology, so machine vision, RFID, barcode. We do have a line of printing and computing of products as well, but we really specialize in providing both off-the-shelf and customized and optimized solutions to medical device manufacturers. And again, I'm not going to read through all the words on the slide, but you can see we have an extensive presence in providing OEM image engines and other related products into medical devices. JADAC is actually part of a much larger company called Novanta. Novanta was previously known as the GSI Group. They're located headquarters in Bedford, Mass. Recently changed the name to Novanta to really reflect the strategy of the company. You can see in the org chart over on the right of this slide that Novanta holds many different companies and really has been acquiring companies really with the intent of becoming a larger presence in providing OEM devices for medical device manufacturers. Okay. Some of the JADAC technologies on this next slide I'll go through briefly. On the top row, you can see we have a suite of devices and barcode scanners, both handheld and fixed mount, as well as a line of machine vision cameras and software. We have a line of OEM embeddable printers and strip chart recorders. You can see that in the fourth bullet over. And on the fifth is our focus for today would be the RFID product lines that Steve's going to talk to you about in a minute. On the bottom row is some of the technologies from the other Novanta companies. The first three bullets talk about a company called NDS that's part of the Novanta group they make a whole suite of displays and wireless links and other informatics products really used to manage images in the OR, so say for endosurgery and so on. Under the high precision, high efficiency motors, we have a company that will develop really high torque, small form factors motors for OEM applications. The optical encoders, we have a line about both rotary and linear optical encoders that can have accuracies down into the sub-nanometer range. Those are used in robotic surgery and DNA sequencing as well as some other applications. And then the last bullet on the far lower right, that was really Novanta's roots came out of some galvanometer products, so where you can have a laser with a steerable motor that you can use in various applications, but in the medical world now we're seeing those used actually in optical surgery, eye surgery. And with that said, that's really the brief introduction to JADAC and Novanta, and now we're going to turn it over to Steve Schneider.
All right, thank you, Chuck. Thanks for the introduction to JADAC and Novanta and everything like that. As Chuck said, my name is Steve Schneider. I'm the RFID Product Manager for JADAC, and I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your day to listen to us explain a little more about RFID, how it can be used. Just a little about me. I started into the RFID industry about 5 years ago with SkyTech. We were primarily focused on providing RFID modules to manufacturers. Then about 6 months ago, SkyTech was acquired by JADAC, and so I've joined the JADAC team, and I've been with JADAC as head of the RFID product line since then. So we're going to go ahead and start the talk today with a brief introduction to RFID, then continue on to how the technology can improve patient safety, protect revenue, and then we'll finish up with some best practices that you can use to actually implement RFID into your design. So at the highest level, there are 3 parts to an RFID system. There's some kind of host, a reader, and a tag. So in the example system that we show here, we have a laptop that acts as our host, which communicates via USB to a reader and antenna. In that system, in this case, we actually call the reader and antenna one piece, kind of our reader system. So the reader system then communicates to a passive RFID tag by sending radio waves over the air. The radio waves then power the tag, which responds to the reader, which in turn sends the tag data back to the laptop. So in our system, we're having communications go from the computer to the reader system, the tag, and back again. So let's go ahead and look at some examples of a host, a reader, and a tag. So on the host system, we have various kinds of devices that could be hosts. So the host of an RFID system is anything that controls the RFID reader. It could be a desktop computer, a laptop, some kind of network device, like a server, or it could even be a microcontroller that's built into another device. Then let's talk about the RFID reader portion. So again, we talk about, when we say reader in the industry, we kind of mean reader plus antenna. So the reader portion of an RFID system really includes 2 smaller parts, the actual reader and the antenna. So some RFID readers have antennas built in, others do not. So in the examples shown here, the RFID fixed reader would communicate over USB to a computer, but then would actually require external antennas to be connected in order to communicate with the tag. So this is our USB port on our fixed reader here. We call this our Supernova. And we'd actually require external antennas to be connected to either of these SMA ports. Though, on the other hand, actually has a built-in antenna. So we have the RFID functionality and the antenna built into this whole system. In this case, it actually has a barcode as well. It's actually one of JADAC's original products before they purchased SkyTech. And then the RFID modules can either come with internal antennas or only support external antennas. Kind of as examples here, again, we have SkyTech's Nova product, which is a UHF RFID module, which only supports external antennas. And then we have SkyTech's M1 Mini, which is an HF module that includes an internal antenna. So again, now we talked about the host system, the reader system, and now the third part of the system of an RFID system is the tag. So the third and final part of the system, the tag itself is composed of a microchip, which is really the brains of our RFID system. And that is connected to an integrated antenna, which allows the microchip to receive and respond to signals sent by the reader. The 3 parts that make up an RFID system, so host, reader, and tag, let's take a look at some of the types of passive RFID technology that exist today. So there's 3 types of technology, 3 passive RFID technologies on the market. There's low frequency, which is shown there, high frequency, or HF, and ultra high frequency, or UHF. So for the purposes of this discussion, we're just going to focus on the 2 most relevant to healthcare, which are HF and UHF. So in general, HF RFID is best for applications that require short range, and by short we mean between 0 and maybe 5 to 10 centimeters, or those applications that require more data to be stored on tags. Generally, HF tags, there's more room for data storage on the tags themselves. This is generally better for longer ranges. As an example, with a single UHF tag in the field of a powerful reader, we can read up to 10 meters, sometimes even further, for a single passive RFID tag in UHF, which is great if you want to read that far, but not great if you don't necessarily need to read that far. It was also great for applications where you're trying to read many tags simultaneously. Sometimes you can read up to 100, 200, or even 500 tags per second. For example, going back to the HF side, is probably the most common example of HF RFID, probably a key fob that allows contactless access to a building. Probably most of you guys actually use that on a daily basis. You may have also seen HF RFID tags inside of some library books, and HF RFID is the technology that powers NFC cell phones. On the UHF side, it's really best known for its use in retail and apparel. It was really, when we heard about the Walmart initiative in the early 2000s, that was all based on UHF RFID. So we're also starting to see kind of some smaller applications such as RFID in lift passes at ski resorts and on baggage tag at airports. Delta Airlines actually just announced they plan to add RFID to all of the bags that they track. So we're going to skip the technical details of how HF and UHF actually work, but if you have questions on that, feel free to submit them. We'll be happy to address them at the end of the talk. So now a little more about RFID, we're going to dive into how RFID can improve patient safety. Is patient safety an issue? It comes down to two major problems: errors and counterfeits. Today we're going to focus on two specific verticals. So we're going to focus on surgery, specifically electrosurgery and in vitro diagnostics. Errors and counterfeits from both can lead to significant potential problems. For instance, if a technician enters incorrect settings on a surgical device before an operation, it can lead to problems during the operation. Or if a counterfeit reagent is used in a diagnostic machine, it could lead to an incorrect diagnostic for the patient, and which can then lead to incorrect treatment for the patient and what they actually think they have. So let's take a look at some of the research that shows how prevalent errors and counterfeits are. Just this past May, about a month ago, May of 2016, the Washington Post, citing a study released by Johns Hopkins, reported that if medical error was a documented cause of death, it would be the third leading cause of death in the United States, contributing to over 250,000 deaths per year, again, only in the United States, second only to heart disease and cancer as the leading causes of death. So by using technology to automate tasks that are prone to human error, we can significantly decrease the rate of error and save thousands of lives per year. So in addition to medical errors, the other major problem threatening patient safety is counterfeit devices and consumables. So Brian Biesman and Neelam Patel wrote an article in Lasers in Surgery and Medicine pointing out that many counterfeits of the Zeltec device, which is used in non-invasive fat reduction procedures, called the procedure they call chirolysis. Accounts of patient burns and scarring that were caused directly by the counterfeit devices. I think often and patients think that counterfeits, we hear about them, but we don't really believe that they exist. So Biesman points out that this problem of medical devices is much more prevalent than most physicians and most consumers might imagine. So, but boutique laser systems are not the only ones seeing counterfeits on the market. We even see counterfeits of devices from some of the largest manufacturers. In 2012 and 2010, respectively, Radian both issued statements about the existence of counterfeit versions of their devices. So what can we do about this? What's the solution to all these errors and counterfeits? It all comes down to one big thing: consumables. To prevent errors and stop counterfeiting is through the authentication, tracking, and verification of consumables. So what do we mean by consumables? Overall, that's a broad term that we can use to describe anything that either should only be used once, like in the example shown here, like a K-cup inside of a Keurig coffee machine, or something that could be used up over time but eventually needs to be replaced, similar to more like a printer and printer ink. So in a household, a consumable, again, it's anything that should only be used once or could be used up over time. So it could be something like paper towels, dish soap, laundry detergent, but in this talk, we're specifically focused on the types of consumables that are part of a larger system. So for the items shown here inside of a normal household, we're talking about items that are part of a larger system. So the printer ink is part of a printer. Razor blades are part of, disposable razor blades are part of a reusable razor handle. K-cups are part of the Keurig coffee maker, and toothbrush heads, replacement toothbrush heads go on the base station of your electronic toothbrushes. So let's actually apply that to the medical side. Let's look at some medical consumables. Here we're focused on the types of medical consumables that either plug into or used in a larger medical device or larger system. So that is looking necessarily at gauze or at disposable scissors. Really, we're looking more at parts that go into larger parts. So those consumables that are integral to the functionality of a larger system, and generally those consumables make up a significant portion of a manufacturer's revenue and definitely a significant portion of their profit. Here, a pulse oximeter would actually plug into a monitor at the patient's bedside. We have defib pads, which are placed on patients' chests and plugged into an AED machine. We have reagents used in IVD systems. Each of these are used in larger pieces. A couple of specific examples of how medical device manufacturers have already built RFID into their system to address these two things, errors and counterfeits. So just to show how one manufacturer addresses errors is the Stryker Crossfire console. The console is an arthroscopy shaver system. And at the highest level, arthroscopy is a surgical procedure that orthopedic surgeons use to treat problems inside of a joint. So the Crossfire console is basically a generator that powers the tools that arthroscopic surgeons use during their procedures. These are shavers, or basically our disposables or consumables that are used, and each one requires a custom power setting from the console. Rather than having to manually reprogram the base station every time, Stryker added RFID. So this quote here is directly from the Crossfire user manual and says, "The console uses radio frequency identification to automatically detect which type of disposable attachment is connected to the handpiece. Upon recognition, the console adjusts to an optimal preset cutting speed, direction, and power." This automatic functionality prevents errors by automatically reading and implementing those settings into the device. And if these settings have been entered in manually, the shaver could potentially have the wrong power cutting speed, which then puts the patient at risk for injury and the surgeon at risk for a lawsuit. So our goal to show how we can address counterfeits is Iris Diagnostics and their urinalysis machine. Iris is actually now a division of Beckman Coulter. They manufacture and sell urinalysis systems for use in hospitals and labs across the world. So the system uses many different types of chemical reagents to detect the presence of certain molecules inside of urine samples. Reagents are used for different tests, and our reagents are actually labeled with RFID tags, and then a reader is embedded inside of the system. So the reader can verify that there's a tag on the reagent, verify that it's authentic, meaning that it came from the correct manufacturer, and that it's not a low-cost competitor, it's not a counterfeit, it's not any kind of generic. And then we can also verify that it's not expired, and we can verify that it's the correct reagent for the test that's being run. So by using RFID, Iris can actually stop counterfeiting, and then they can actually also take advantage of some other benefits, like preventing the use of expired products, or making sure that the system is automatically set up with the correct reagent. So they can take advantage of some other benefits intrinsic to RFID. So examples, we can show that RFID offers a solution to each of the previously identified problems, and that RFID can directly improve safety. And it can do that by increasing accuracy of test results, which therefore leads to more correct diagnosis and treatments. We can improve outcomes in surgical procedures, thereby decreasing recovery time or the need for additional surgery. We can reduce the time required to run lab tests, which then allows physicians to make critical decisions much more quickly. We can enforce expiration dates. We can prevent infections, which then improves recovery time and also reduces the risk of an infection spreading throughout a hospital. So, in short, improve patient safety by reducing errors and preventing counterfeits. how RFID can protect revenue. Protecting revenue many times already, and as you can probably guess at this point, here we're specifically focused on the revenue that is driven by consumable sales. So we want to focus on how we can hold on to those precious consumable sales. First and foremost, we can ensure consumables are genuine. We want to ensure that they're from the original manufacturer and being used in the manner in which they were intended to be used. Second, improve the customer experience by cutting out time-consuming, tedious, and error-prone tasks. We can track who uses an instrument. We can basically track performance and usage metrics by tracking who's using an instrument, what tests were being completed, what the results were, and then logging all that information for later analysis. Ensure that consumables are genuine. The easiest way is to verify the manufacturer and any other data that is unique to that piece of equipment. How can we do that? The simplest way is to password protect the RFID tag data. So at the manufacturing facility, we could write a unique manufacturer code, a lot code, a date code, or any other information to tag memory. Then we can protect it with a password that only the tag and reader know. So by writing these unique codes, we can ensure that there's no counterfeits or low-cost competitors jumping into our market share. So we can also use usage limitation by writing the RFID tags when items are used, then either locking or even killing those tags after a set number of uses. So as an example, if a surgical instrument was only allowed to be used once, we could write the tag on the tool that the machine had been used before, which would then prevent it from being not just used in the same machine, but being used in any other machine within our system. So by preventing counterfeits or low-cost competitors, you can definitely protect your revenue. For your customer to really embrace that and not feel like you're just nickel and diming them and making them 100% stick to your consumable, really the best option is for the manufacturer to build tangible benefits for the customer into the system. So how can we help the customer? So a great use of RFID is to simplify the setup of a complex machine. As an example, let's go back to the urinalysis machine we talked about a little earlier. So the setup to run each test can be actually really complex. There's a lot of different settings they have to put in. It's time consuming. It can take maybe five minutes for a technician to do this for each system and each reagent that we're actually loading into the system. We use an RFID tag to include data about the reagent that's being inserted into the system. The machine then can reprogram itself based on which reagent is being used and which test is being run. Also check and see if that reagent is nearing expiration, and if it is, the system can notify the technician that more of the reagent should be ordered, thereby ensuring maximum uptime of the machine and preventing any out-of-stock situations where we have to wait an entire day until we can run a particular test on urine. And then finally, by writing to the tag on the reagent bottle every time some of the reagent is used, we can estimate the amount of reagent left in a bottle and again notify the technician before it's too late, thereby again maximizing uptime and verifying that we have enough of that reagent in stock and that we can continue to run our tests at any given time. So your customer, you just created a significant selling point that makes your customer's life easier and your product more compelling to them, and really could even increase sales and increase customer loyalty to that product. So finally, you can actually track performance metrics of the system itself and of the technician using it. Build access control into the system. Most of your technicians probably already have a key card. If we build a way that we can read that key card into the system, we can connect each user of the system to the work they did, when they did it, and as well as the outcomes of that work. Then we can also monitor and log system parameters, and by doing that, using sensors that are built into the system, not necessarily into the RFID system, but into the overall system of the say it's a urinalysis machine, a blood analyzer, anything like that, we can write data about the entire system, the RFID tag. By doing this, we can actually verify the consumables working correctly, because if a key metric changes inside of the base station, we can flag that consumable and remove it from the system before it leads to a faulty test. So the best he's the president of Inditech now. Actually, that's a Danaher company. He wrote an article in IV Technology and said, radio frequency identification offers the best protection and versatility to ensure that important long-term revenue from reagent and consumable sales can be secured. So, why to implement RFID? So then the question is, how do we actually do it? So let's take a look at some RFID system implementation best practices. To find an embedded RFID reader into your medical device design. The very, very first step that we should start with is we want to determine the need. Are we trying to protect consumables? Are we trying to ensure the correct configuration of the machine? Do we want to reduce the number of user interactions so that we can actually speed up the process of using a machine and save our customers a lot of downtime? Do we want to protect our revenue? Are we trying to create an audit log? Are we trying to track whoever's using the system? Just we really want to focus on what is the need, why do we really want to add RFID? It can be any or all of those things, consumables, protecting revenue, anything. After that, put a business case. So in order to do that, you want to ask yourself about your costs, or you want to ask yourself about how much money you could save if you implemented RFID and how much it would cost. So how much could we save if we prevented lost revenue due to either low-cost competitors or due to counterfeits or anything like that? How much money could we save if we prevented any kind of damage that would cause to our reputation if those counterfeits did surface and caused harm to patients? We prevented lawsuits that might result from those counterfeits. So how much we could save and how much RFID really can be worth for you. We want to look at how much will implementation cost. So we want to see how much the engineering time will cost, how quickly and easily we can get to market, how much tags and readers cost per unit, then quickly how much regulatory would be. And this, just as a side note, this is actually a point where JDAC can definitely help, and where you would definitely want to consider, if you are a medical device manufacturer, using a module, because you can actually save a lot of money on the engineering time and cost. You can get to market faster, and you can take out a significant portion of the risk that would be intrinsic to building an RFID system from the ground up. So again, JDAC is definitely, we're here to help if you guys do have questions on that at any point. So once you've determined that you want to use RFID, the business case makes sense. You want to validate the feasibility of this with an engineering team. So you want to look into what kind of reader you want to use. When you're looking at readers, you will want to consider HF or UHF. Again, with that, you'll want to consider how much range you need, how many tags you want to read at once, things like that. Then you'll want to identify the tag. How much data do we want to store on this tag? Do we only want to store a unique identifier, or do we want to store everything that we know and that we've seen about that consumable, such as when it was manufactured, where it was manufactured, how long it's been in use, how many times it's been used, what the expiration date is, everything like that. So you want to determine how much data you want to put on that tag. You want to see if it's a mount on metal tag that you need, if there's any sterilization requirements. Does it need to go through autoclave? Does it need to go through gamma radiation at any point in its lifespan? Are there any size or price requirements, things like that? You want to also consider the antenna. How many antennas do you think we'll need, required antenna sizes. Again, all of this is really where JDAC can help. If you guys do have questions, feel free to reach out anytime. We can help identify a reader, pick out tag types. The tag market is pretty broad. We can definitely help with that. And we even offer antenna design, custom antenna designs, so that we can really create an antenna that's specific to your particular environment. And then once we've decided that it's feasible, we want to implement the design, and we just want to build a prototype, write the software, and design our final hardware. It comes time to complete regulatory testing. So if we're in North America, if you're only marketing and selling your device in North America, all you have to worry about is the FCC and IC if you're going to send to Canada. That's Industry Canada. If you're considering Europe, you'll want to look at CE and SC testing. And if you need worldwide certifications, this regulatory testing for RFID could actually be a pretty significant portion of your RFID implementation, because the standards do vary from location, from country to country, especially on the UHF side. HF testing is pretty much worldwide at specifically 13.56 megahertz. In the UHF, the bands and bandwidths vary quite a bit. So, a module to add to, again, some kind of finished device design to add RFID capabilities, you'll want to look for modules that are modularly certified for use in the areas you plan to market your device. It means that if we're modularly certified, we can basically save you a lot of the regulatory testing that you have to do. Those 5 steps one more time. So you want to determine the need. You want to make sure that there is a business case for this. You want to make sure that it makes financial sense to actually add RFID to a product. Then you want to check with engineering, and again, your engineering team could be JDAC if you guys do have questions on that. Make sure that the technology is capable of completing what you kind of imagine. Then you want to implement that design and complete the regulatory testing. So with that, we're going to kind of wrap up the talk, but if you walk out of here having learned just one thing, it should be that authentication, tracking, and verification of consumables allows manufacturers to combat threats to income and offer a safer product. So what can you do from here? If you liked all this information and you were really excited and jazzed about your project, but what you can do next, I think the first step is to take a look, find out how much of your company's revenue comes from consumable sales. Then estimate if 10% of that, if 10% of that were to disappear, either due to low-cost competitors or some kind of counterfeit, or if anything like that, what would that do to your bottom line? Hopefully that can help create a business case for RFID. And if you have any questions along the way, JDAC is here. We can help you with anything that you have RFID related. So thank you for that time. With that, I'm going to actually pass it back over to Justina, and she'll go through and we'll answer some questions. Justina?
At this time, I would like to read off of some of the questions that were submitted during the presentation. I'd also like to remind everyone that if you have a question for Steve offline, you are more than welcome to email him directly at steveschneider@jdactech.com. Steve, some of the questions that came in, one of them was, what is passive versus active RFID technology, and which one of those does JDAC provide?
So what is passive versus active RFID? So passive RFID means that the RFID tag does not have any kind of battery and is 100% powered by the RFID reader. In the active RFID, the tag would have battery the tag would actually have a battery on site. So again, when HF and RFID, HF and UHF and LF, those are all examples of passive RFID, and that's really where we focus. Again, at JDAC, we only focus on HF and UHF RFID, though we can dive into LF if it need be. Active RFID is generally used for kind of very, very high value assets, maybe a car or a military container, something like that. The tags are big and bulky, have a battery built in, but the advantage of them is that the read range can be very long and they can be read very quickly. So the examples of active RFID, again, like a toll system where you have cars that are rolling through at 70, 80 miles an hour, rolling through a toll station. You want to be able to pick that up quickly and from a long distance. The range on those can be up to 100 meters in some cases. And again, the way those work is the active RFID reader sends out a signal that basically wakes up the tag, and then it uses the battery to send the signal back to the reader. Passive, on the other hand, actually uses uses radio waves to 100% power the reader and then send back and listens back for the signal from the tag. So the other advantage of passive tags is that they're much, much cheaper. At maybe 100,000 tags per year, an RFID tag can be as low as, or a passive RFID tag can be as low as 10 cents a unit, whereas an active tag for the same volumes might be more in the range of $5 to $10 a unit.
Another question that was submitted is how accurate are RFID readers?
Okay, are RFID readers. So in the RFID realm, you know, when we talk about inventory accuracy, you'll routinely see 99% accuracy rates. But in medical devices, when we're actually talking about, you know, much shorter range and kind of maybe even just a single unit at a time, really what we're seeing is 99.99% and effectively 100% accuracy ratings across the board. So.
Cool. Yep. That actually concludes all of our questions. So I would like to thank all of our attendees for joining the webinar today, and a big thanks to our presenters, Chuck and Steve, for their presentation. A recording of this session will automatically be emailed to those who registered for the event within the next 24 hours. Also, if any of our attendees have further questions on RFID or any of our other technologies, we invite you to visit our website, jdectech.com, or schedule a tech day with us by emailing us at techday@jdectech for a free technology consultation. You are also invited to give us a call any time at 315-701-0678 or the 800 number that you see there up on the screen. Thank you, everyone, for attending again, and have a great day.
Thank you.